The Pope, walking alone through an empty St. Peter's Square, up a hill towards a prominent wooden cross. In an ancient city, praying for humanity in the midst of death and tribulation.
Dio onnipotente e misericordioso, guarda la nostra dolorosa condizione. In questa Quaresima risuona il tuo appello urgente.
This Lent, your call reverberates urgently. Be converted. Return to me with all your heart. Joel 2:12. You are calling on us to seize this time of trial as a time of choosing.
In the Pope's extraordinary blessing of the city and the world on March 27, 2020, some have seen a resemblance to the 100-year-old prophecy of the Third Secret of Fatima and its appeal to penance. Was the Third Secret of Fatima speaking about the reality we're living today? An answer can be found in the explanatory document issued in the year 2000 by the Congregation for the Doctrine of the Faith, called The Message of Fatima. In this two-part special episode of Vaticano, we'll rediscover the Third Secret of Fatima with the help of Cardinal Tarcisio Bertone, who on several occasions met Lucia dos Santos, the last little shepherd and visionary of Fatima. The Cardinal was the number 2 official of the Congregation for the Doctrine of the Faith in the year 2000 and was part of the theological committee that drafted the explanatory document framing the Church's official word on the third secret revealed to the shepherd children by Our Lady.
E qui ci sono I manoscritti di Sor Lucia, ed è una scrittura perfetta.
This interview was filmed in May of 2017 by the EWTN Vatican Bureau team on the occasion of the 100th anniversary of the apparitions of Our Lady in Fatima. Though some parts were aired, the entirety of this interview has never been broadcast. 100 years from the apparitions of Fatima, what message does Fatima give to humanity still today?
È la conferma di una notizia molto consolante.
It is the confirmation of very consoling news, and that is that the Mother of God, the Mother of the Son of God incarnate, and our Mother, does not abandon humanity in the course of history, but she is present and keeps watch as a spokesperson and guarantor of God's mercy, and that is as the mediator of salvation. She launches an appeal for the co-responsibility of all the children of God to work together to make all humanity a family of God's children and to relive humanity from all the problems, pains and sufferings that unfortunately afflict it.
Le sofferenze e I travagli che purtroppo l'affliggono.
On May 13, 1917, in the fields of Cova de Iria, near the small village of Fatima, Portugal, 3 children tending to their flock of sheep witnessed the supernatural apparition of a beautiful young lady. She would later introduce herself as Our Lady of the Rosary. The 3 children described her as brighter than the sun, dressed in a white mantle edged with gold and holding a rosary in her hand. Her request was to devote themselves to the Holy Trinity and to pray the rosary every day, in order to bring peace to the world.
Si dice che Fatima sia stata la più clamorosa, la più profetica.
Is Fatima really the most sensational, political, and prophetic Marian apparition of the 20th century?
È stato detto così ed è veramente così.
It has to be said so, and it truly is so, because beyond the message of personal conversion and of penance, 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 as Our Lady repeated, it touches the political and international community. It concerns Russia, it concerns Europe, it concerns the history of Europe, it concerns the papacy as an institution, it concerns the Supreme Pontiffs, both as recipients of the persecution against Christians who suffer in their own flesh, as protagonists of the answers that Our Lady asks for in her apparitions.
Che la Madonna chiede nelle sue apparizioni.
The Lady of Fatima asked the children to come to the same place on the 13th day of every month. The apparitions occurred 6 times from May to October of 1917. During these meetings, the Virgin Mary entrusted 3 secrets to the children. The first secret was a vision of hell and the suffering of sinners. The second secret was a prediction of the end of the Great War and the beginning of another, unless people converted and repented, and this is why she requested the consecration of Russia to her Immaculate Heart. And the third secret was a vision of the death of a person vested in white garments, that the children associated with the person of the Pope. This final secret was not disclosed to the public until the year 2000. It's been associated with the attempted murder of Pope St. John Paul II on May 13, 1981, the very feast day of Our Lady of Fatima. Later on, the Pope himself thanked Our Lady of Fatima for saving his life. He would place the bullet with which he had been shot in the crown of the statue of Our Lady at the shrine of Fatima.
Perché queste rivelazioni?
And why choose 3 little shepherds, 3 children, to deliver such an important message?
E nello stile di Dio, Dio sceglie i più deboli.
That's God's style. God chooses the weakest, in a certain sense the most powerless, to make them recipients of a message to be communicated to humanity, and to make them co-responsible for the salvation of humanity. This happens according to the words of the Gospel. When Jesus says, "I give praise to you, Father, Lord of heaven and earth, for although you have hidden these things from the wise and the learned, you have revealed them to the childlike." Masoretic text 11:25, or according to the words of St. Paul in the first letter to the Corinthians, in which we read, "God choose the weak of the world to shame the strong." Corinthians 1:27. In weakness, the power of God is revealed, that can transform and renew humanity.
Che può trasformare e rinnovare l'umanità.
Soon after the apparitions, the 2 smaller shepherds died, and Our Lady welcomed them into heaven, just as she had promised them. Francisco Marto died at the age of 10 on April 4th, 1919, and Jacinta died at the age of 9 in February of 1920. Lucia, who remained, offered her life to the service of God and chose the consecrated life. Stay with us. After the break, Cardinal Tarcisio Bertone speaks about his meetings with Sister Lucia dos Santos. Six times in 6 months, the 3 shepherd children witnessed the apparitions of Our Lady at Fatima, but each in his or her own distinct manner. Jacinta could see and hear Our Lady, but couldn't communicate with her. Francisco could only see Our Lady, but could neither hear nor speak with her. Lucia, in this regard, had a special role during the apparitions because she could see, hear, and communicate with Mary.
Lei ha incontrato 3 volte ufficialmente.
You had 3 official meetings with Sister Lucia. What kind of person was she? What was her relationship with the apparitions and the revelations she received?
Sor Lucia era una persona luminosa.
Sister Lucia was a bright, a very pleasant, serene, peaceful and calm person. She was a trusting person who had to keep a great secret.
Da custodire un grande segreto. Aveva da comunicare dei grandi messaggi.
She had a great message to communicate to humanity, but in the first conversation I had with her in the year 2000, in the month of April, before publishing the third part of The Secret of Fatima, she felt liberated by telling the world because the message had been secret, and so she spoke with great confidence and she felt herself to be a missionary of this message of Fatima for all humanity.
Missionaria di questo messaggio di Fatima per l'umanità.
I thought she was a person who certainly struggled during life, but was never afraid. She had great confidence in God. She felt protected by the Lord and by Our Lady, and she also felt like a living part, an integrated part of the Pilgrim Church.
Della Chiesa in cammino.
Dopo tanti anni in cui non c'era stato un dialogo, Sor Lucia aveva scritto dei...
For years, Sister Lucia wrote to the popes, and the popes didn't reply. Then Pope John Paul II decided to reopen the dialogue. You brought this news to Sister Lucia. How did she receive the news?
Sor Lucia ha avuto un certo dialogo con Pio XII.
I must say, Sister Lucia had some dialogue with Pius XII. There was an exchange with Pius XII and, in a certain sense, through messages the Pope sent to her and she sent to the Pope. But then it was effectively Pope John Paul II who opened up this dialogue, because no one had replied to the previous letters. She was very excited about the letter. I have here the text of the letter in Portuguese written by the Pope to Sister Lucia. The letter expressed great esteem for Sister Lucia and told her, as we know, to speak with full confidence to me, whom John Paul II wrote would report her responses directly to him, that is, to the Pope. She had no hesitation. She said, "All right, I will tell you everything you ask of me."
Non ebbe alcuna esitazione, disse: va bene, allora dirò tutto quello che lei mi domanda. Era felice.
She was happy. The atmosphere was very pleasant. Sister Lucia, before the will of the Pope, was open to every confidence and to the veracity of the memory and descriptions of the events and words that had been entrusted to her by Mary. In her conversation, she knew how to reach the central core of the message with clarity, evoking the counsels of the Virgin who appeared in Fatima.
Della Vergine apparsa a Fatima.
After the break, Cardinal Bertone explains why Pope St. John Paul II decided to disclose the Third Secret of Fatima in the year 2000. The Great Jubilee of the year 2000 was a truly remarkable moment in the life of the Church. The whole Christian world celebrated the second millennial anniversary of the birth of Jesus Christ. It was the close of a century marked by 2 world wars, and the Jubilee was the opening of a new chapter. It was also the moment the Pope decided to release the Third Secret of Fatima to the world.
We saw an angel with a flaming sword in his left hand, flashing. It gave out flames that looked as though they would set the world on fire, but they died out in contact with the splendor that Our Lady radiated towards him from her right hand. Pointing to the earth with his right hand, the angel cried out in a loud voice, "Penance, penance, penance." And we saw in an immense light that is God, something similar to how people appear in the mirror when they pass in front of it. A bishop dressed in white. We had the impression that it was the Holy Father. Other bishops, priests, men and women religious going up a steep mountain, at the top of which there was a big cross of rough-hewn trunks as of a cork tree with the bark. Before reaching there, the Holy Father passed through a big city, half in ruins and half trembling with halting step. Afflicted with pain and sorrow, he prayed for the souls of the corpses he met on his way. Having reached the top of the mountain, on his knees at the foot of the big cross, he was killed by a group of soldiers who fired bullets and arrows at him. And in the same way, there died one after another the other bishops, priests, men and women religious, and various lay people of different ranks and positions. Beneath the two arms of the cross, there were two angels, each with a crystal aspersorium in his hand, in which they gathered up the blood of the martyrs, and with it sprinkled the souls that were making their way to God.
Ci può raccontare come...
You were in the Congregation for the Doctrine of the Faith, you were its secretary. Why was the decision made to release the Third Secret precisely in 2000, during the Jubilee?
Intanto era il Giubileo della Redenzione, ma poi alla fine del secondo millennio.
At the end of the second millennium, there was a keen expectation to know the secret of Fatima. There were many things written, even fantastic things. There were predictions, catastrophic, apocalyptic allusions. On the occasion of the decision to beatify the two little shepherds, the decision was also made to publish the original text of the so-called Third Secret of Fatima.
Anche la decisione di pubblicare finalmente il testo autentico del cosiddetto Terzo Segreto di Fatima.
The decision was made directly by Pope John Paul II in a meeting at which Cardinal Joseph Ratzinger, then prefect of the Congregation for the Doctrine of Faith, Cardinal Angelo Sodano, then Secretary of State, myself and Monsignor Ree, substitute of the Secretariat of State, and the personal secretary to the Pope, Monsignor Stanislav Dziwisz, were present. The Pope entrusted me to go and to present to Sister Lucia the text conserved in the secret archives of the Holy Office for her examination, for an authentication both of the writing of the text and contents of the text.
Della scrittura del testo e sia dei contenuti.
Quale fu?
What was the path of this famous open envelope that contained the third part of the Secret of Fatima? How many popes have known the secret? And why are two envelopes so widely spoken of?
Sì, perché c'è una busta.
Because there's an outer envelope from Sister Lucia on which 1960 was written, that famous and a bit debated date, and another envelope inside which kept the original envelope of Sister Lucia on which was written third part of the Secret of Fatima. The famous envelopes, as we know from the archives of the Holy See, arrived in Rome in 1957 by way of the Apostolic Nuncio to Portugal, Monsignor Cento. The first to see the envelope with the Secret of Fatima was John the 23rd in 1959, who read it with his confessor, Monsignor Cavigna. Then Paul VI in 1965, then John Paul II on July 18, 1981, and each, after having read the secret, ordered, even if for some time John Paul II kept it in the papal apartment, to put it back in the secret archive of the Holy Office, in a special safe that was closed with some special antique keys. There were 3 keys distributed accordingly among the superiors of the Holy Office, so that no one could go and withdraw it, open it without the presence of the others, without the consent of the superiors.
Andare a prelevarlo, aprirlo senza la presenza degli altri, senza il consenso dei superiori, eccetera.
Lei cosa ha provato?
What did you feel when you read the Third Secret for the first time?
Evidentemente molto colpito, molto stupito di fronte a quella lettura.
I was obviously deeply struck, very amazed by that reading, but at the same time I saw the confirmation of events and words already spoken by, already heard from John Paul II. That is to say, confirmation of the prediction, aside from the persecutions, the Church in the century, but of a story of suffering and persecutions that not only touched the simple, the little ones, the faithful, but touched the guardians of the Church, the priests and bishops, to the point of reaching the bishop wearing white, who to the little shepherds was the Pope. And then up to the assassination attempt, and no less than in the Pope's house, in the house common to all the faithful. It is a horrible and unspeakable fact that this is a bit at the heart of the message, in the sense that it is the focal point as it touches all the people of God, together with the Supreme Shepherd of the people of God on earth and in history.
Popolo di Dio che cammina sulla terra e nella storia.
Next week, we'll offer you the rest of this comprehensive, exclusive, and until now unaired 2017 interview with Cardinal Tarcisio Bertone about the Marian apparitions at Fatima. Cardinal Bertone addresses the request of Our Lady to consecrate Russia to her Immaculate Heart and the question of whether or not it was accomplished according to her will. This and more on next week's Vaticano.